Some housekeeping before we start our lecture. So some of you may be wondering, ano na nga ba yung experiments and paano gumawa ng report? So if you look at your classroom, Google Classroom, you can see this guide. We have 4 experiments in all in one long exam. So the 4 experiments are as shown here. It's also found in the original course guide. Also noted there are the concepts that we need to learn in order to do the experiments. So the report will be a long report. It's a paper. And the general parts of the report would be as follows. But what's different here is you have a reflection, which is a short narrative why you think your results are valid or correct, and how you felt about the activity. This is again very important because I need to know if you enjoyed or if it's tedious or if you got excited, and that will inform the next iteration of these activities. Then you will self-grade. This is not your final grade, but this is your self-assessment as you, I think we've done this before, so you know what this is, you know, how much you think you deserve based on the report that you made. The self-grade has a rubric, so you could be more objective about grading yourself. And this is how it's divided. You give yourself 35 points for technical correctness if you've met all objectives, understood the lesson, all results are correct and complete, and the code is understandable and has sufficient comments. Give yourself another 35 points if your quality of presentation is as follows. You know, your circuit diagrams and code were presented. The figure captions can stand alone. It's not just a single word or a phrase. All plots are labeled properly, and the text is of good quality, and all the graphs are visually understandable. Another 30 points for self-reflection. See, taas ng ano niya, ng grade niya rin. Because this is where the learning happens, guys. When you explained the validity of the results in the report, you discuss what went right or wrong in the activity, you justify the self-score, and another important science habit is you acknowledge your sources, like the persons you consulted, even the websites and other online resources cited. Now, give yourself a bonus 10 points if you went beyond the requirements. For example, you self-studied advanced code or you created original code. You integrated past lessons even beyond or apart from 184. I mean, if you have lessons back in 107, 117, mga ganon. And you investigated the limitation of a setup, or how about if you tested the system on other applications? So this is how you would grade yourself. So you check this, and then give yourself score. And then you can have either a score of 100 up to 110. Okay? May tanong ba dito sa self-grading? This is part of your report. Now, how would the report go? I've already given here the outlines. So essentially, fill in the blanks. I do not give the procedure. Instead, I give a lecture how it can be done. In the reports, you give the procedure. You understand? Guys, kailangan natin mag-level up sa real world. Kasi sa real world, hindi naman kayo bibigyan ng ano eh, pag kunyari, you already work in a research agency. Sure, merong manuals yun mga equipment. Pero kung may problem, sasabihin lang sa'yo, ito yung mga kailangan nating malaman. Okay? So bahala ka nang mag-isip ng procedure para malaman to. Ganun, sa real world. So dapat level up na kayo sa real world things. So for example, sa angle sensor and light dependent sensor, we need to meet these objectives. We need to convert a potentiometer into an angle sensor, obtain an input-output calibration curve between resistor and rotation angle, program Arduino to display angle using calibration curve, and measure the time constant of an LDR. All I give you are the outlines, no? And so fill in the gaps. So all reports will have more or less the same outline. Of course, you can go extra if you want to add some more information. That could be an initiative point. But for example, potentiometer as angle sensor, You have to have a section there explaining how a potentiometer works, which means you need to research or look back at your lectures. Potentiometer's voltage divider, concept and diagram, the input-output curve itself, angle versus voltage, results in analysis, and then validation. Transient response, light-dependent resistor, how an LDR works, measuring the transient response of an LDR, concept and diagram, time constant of an LDR, results in analysis, self-grade, and reflection. Okay. The three other reports or experiments are as follows. Ito, pag-usapan natin ito ngayon, applying Fourier transform in light and sound sensors. So the objectives for the second activity or experiment is use the Fourier transform to measure frequencies in light and sound signals, determine the Nyquist limit of a sensor, program a data acquisition device to sample without aliasing. And the report outline is as follows. You should talk about the Fourier transform, discuss the concept, and discuss the discrete fast Fourier transform. You will then write about the Fourier transform of light flicker signals. You'll talk about the strobe light apps that you found, and the LDR circuit diagram for capturing strobe light results in analysis. Then you will talk about FT of sound signals. You will use Audacity, the free program to analyze audio signals, and the setup for capturing sound from musical instruments results in analysis. And then, of course, we end with self-grade and reflection. The third experiment is on vibration test for resonance detection. So in here, the objectives are you should learn to generate chirp signals, determine the frequency response of any structure, determine if a structure resonates at certain frequencies. So I'm teaching this because this is an important skill to have. If you want to work in the space industry, we usually look for resonance of satellites because when the rocket launches these satellites, we don't want the satellite to resonate and break apart. So we want to avoid its natural frequencies whenever possible. So the report outline would be what is the frequency response. And then you talk about analytic and experimental method of getting frequency response, the concept and examples of resonance. Then I'll ask you to talk about the chirp signal, its origins and uses, and ways to generate the chirp. Then you will measure the resonant frequencies of a structure. You'll talk about this. You show a concept and the diagram, the results of your experiments and the validation, and of course the self-grade and reflection. And finally, we will work with motors. So the objectives for this last experiment would be how to control a motor and how to construct an electronic sunflower with an LDR and a motor that rotates to where the light source is brightest. Like this is a proxy for a solar panel that is capable of finding where the sun is so that it maximizes the sunlight that impinges on the panels. So the report outlines would be, first you talk about the different types of motors, and then we'll zero in on how stepper motors are controlled. Then you talk about the concept of feedback control loops. Then on the fourth section, you talk about your design for an electronic sunflower. In the fifth, you talk about the results of your electronic sunflower in the analysis. And lastly, of course, self-grade and reflection. Are there any questions about the experiments and how to write the reports? Again, I'm not gonna give you a step-by-step guide. You're gonna figure it out yourself. I'm only gonna give you an outline and you have to fill in the blanks. Okay? Do I hear any objections, questions, comments? Going once? Going twice? Okay, go on. Yeah.
Clarify ko lang po.
Yeah.
Formal report po ba to? Like SPP paper?
Bahala kayo sa kung ano yung anong tawag doon? Template format. Ang importante, nandito lahat. Yung at the minimum, kung ano yung outline na sinulat ko, at the minimum, meron siyang outline na ganyan. So, I'm not particular about what template you would use. Oh, sure, you could use SPP. If you are a LaTeX person, go ahead and use any report template you find in LaTeX. Importante sa akin, the outline is at the minimum followed. You can add, but you cannot subtract. Is that clear? Okay. Other questions? Okay. Kung wala na, no objections to this? Again, I'm trying to make you realize ito sa real world, guys, ganito yan. You have to figure it out yourself, okay? So at least after your course, sanay na kayo sa real world situation. Okay, I'm gonna stop share here.